Hi, this is Mike Brown, owner of Death Wish Coffee Company. Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast.
I love Jeff, but sweet and high. Whoop, Mr. Motorama coffee.
Death Wish Coffee presents Fueled by Deathcast, the world's strongest podcast. Get ready, the show's about to begin.
Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast, everybody. This is episode 132, if you've been keeping track from the beginning, or it's season 3, episode 28. And as always, in your ear holes and possibly in your eye holes, I am the incredible Jeff. And I'd love it if you took a second to not only follow this show and everything we do on social media at Fueled by Deathcast across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Music, iHeartRadio, or if you're watching it in full video on the Death Wish Coffee Company YouTube page, please hit that subscribe button. By subscribing to this podcast, you get all the new episodes and you get notified when they come out. Every single week, we've got a brand new episode every Thursday. That is the Fueled by Deathcast with a very special guest. Every single Sunday, we have the Fueled by Deathcast Science mini episode that comes out. And totally different from all of that, the live show you can catch every single Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Death Wish Coffee Company Facebook page. So you're definitely going to want to be a fan of the Death Wish Coffee Company Facebook page, and you'll get notified when we go live every single Wednesday night. I love getting to create all this cool stuff for you guys, and it would be nothing. It would be absolutely nothing without the voice of death himself, Brock Powell. You can follow Brock across all social media at BrockVox and at BrockVox.com. He's the voice actor on this show and 1,000 voices out there in the world. I love following his journey as a voice actor because not only does he get to do some incredible work on TV, movies, video games, all that kind of stuff, but he gets to work with some of the best in the business. So I definitely recommend following what he's up to. And as a fan of this show, you get to hear what he's up to because I talk about him just about every single week because I love him to death.
Secret code unlocked. Discount of death.
As a fan of Fueled by Deathcast, you get a special discount on deathwishcoffee.com. Go on over to deathwishcoffee.com and make a purchase today. Get our coffee, our awesome merchandise, anything you see up there. Once you put it in your cart and you go to checkout, you'll see type in gift code here and you can type in the code, all one word, discount of Jeff for 12% off your purchase for being a fan of Fueled by Deathcast. It's a way that I get to say thank you for being awesome. So discount of Jeff, all one word, for 12% off at deathwishcoffee.com. I want to take a second and shout out some friends of the show who have shows of their own that I'd love for you to be a fan of and be listening to when you're not listening to Fueled by Deathcast. First up is Mr. Ricky Rahman. You might remember Ricky Rahman as the host of MTV's Headbangers Ball back in the day when MTV used to play music videos. But Ricky was also the co-owner and co-creator of the infamous Cat House Club in Hollywood. And back in the day, that club was the mecca of rock and roll, of sleaze, debauchery, of fashion, of just that entire scene from the late 80s and early 90s. And all of those stories of what happened in those walls of that club basically remained a secret until now. Ricky has a brand new podcast called Cat House Hollywood Podcast, where every other week he regales stories from what went on at the Cat House back in the day. And he's had some incredible special guests and some incredible stories you don't want to miss, like Axl Rose chasing David Bowie down the street yelling he's gonna kill him. That's a real story, and you can hear the whole thing on Ricky's Cat House Hollywood Podcast, wherever podcasts are found. Also, friend of the show, Steve Souza, the singer of Exodus, Zetro himself, has a new web series. You can find it right on YouTube, Zetro's Toxic Vault, and he's constantly putting up new episodes of Tales from the Road, Tales from Back in the Day, movie reviews, whatever the hell he wants to talk about, he does, and he's fueled by some of the best coffee around. That's right, the world's strongest coffee, Death Wish Coffee, fuels that show. And it shows because he has a hell of a lot of fun telling stories with special guests, sometimes by himself, and just having a great time in his Toxic Vault. So definitely go on over to YouTube and subscribe to Zetro's Toxic Vault. This week on the show, I have a very special guest. Speaking of Exodus, I've got guitarist and also the tour manager, Kragen Lum. Kragen is not only connected with Exodus, he's connected with a bunch of bands out there, including Heathen. And we talk about how he broke into the music business, how he's toured the world with various different metal bands, how he's now managing and tour managing bands, and how he got into that. And he even surprised me because there was a moment in his career where he kind of shifted away from music, didn't know if he was ever going to come back to it, and got into the video game world. And we talk about how he literally was working on Guitar Hero. So even when he thought he wasn't going to be back in the music industry, the video game industry kind of pulled him back in without him even knowing. And it's an incredible conversation about focus and drive and really just, putting one foot in front of the other and seeing where the universe is going to lead you. And it's inspiring to hear Kragen talk about his journey in the music industry, the video game industry, and in life in general. So mugs up this week for this week's Death guest, Kragen Lum.
The Fueled by Death guest.
So, Kragen, let's start off by listing everything you freaking do, because when it comes to being busy in the music industry, you might win the award for that. Just like I know, currently you are playing with Exodus, which is kind of how we got connected, which is great. But you're playing with a bunch of other people and doing a bunch of other stuff too. Can you kind of just give me a list and run down the list of everything that you do?
Sure. As a musician, you sometimes have to wear many hats to survive. So most people know me from filling in for Gary Holt in Exodus. I've been doing that since 2013. It looks like that's pretty much coming to an end as Gary's going to be wrapping up his duties with Slayer. It's been awesome. I've had a great time doing it. I love all the guys, and I'm still going to be working with them. I've sort of switched over to the management side, so I'm one of their two managers. And I work on a lot of other projects for them, helping them collect royalties and doing production stuff. We just released a single for them through Nuclear Blast, which is from an old recording from 1984. It was a live recording, and the song was in the Murder in the Front Row movie. Yeah. And we really wanted to get that out to everybody so they could hear it. So, what else do I do? I'm in a band called Heathen with Lee Altus also from Exodus, and we are actually working on a new record right now. Yes. We're doing pre-production, and we're hoping to record in the next couple months. That will be coming out through Nuclear Blast, and we're really looking forward to it. As our fans are used to waiting, it's been almost 10 years since the last record. So, we're sort of taking our time with it a little bit, more than we expected to, just because we know that after 10 years, it's got to be killer. Yeah. So, we're still doing pre-production right now, but hopefully that will be out. And then we'll be touring next year for it. So awesome. We're really looking forward to that. I play in several other bands. Most of them are not all that active at the moment. My band Prototype hasn't done a record since 2012. We hope to get one done. The band that I started in high school, Psychosis, is still active. We actually got the lineup from our 1992 EP Life Force together to record some songs from back in '93 that we never recorded properly.
Whoa.
That one's actually in motion already. The drum tracks are done. So, and then besides that, I have a small record label that I release my own band stuff. I just finished this.
Yes.
The Exodus Tempo of the Damned guitar book, which is available now. And I did the Pleasures of the Frets. I'm wearing the T-shirt today,
Nice.
which was the first Exodus guitar book. I love doing stuff like that. Most of these projects are like these guitar books. They're what I call legacy projects. You know, bands like Exodus that deserve to have guitar books that never got them for whatever reason. I like doing them, and it's really cool to be doing that stuff. So
That's excellent, and oh my gosh, like you're never bored. I can say that with certainty. You can never be bored doing all that kind of stuff. That's really rad. I just want to start real quick talking about Exodus. You said, obviously that you playing with the band is probably going to be coming to an end because Slayer is finally going to be done, and Gary's going to come back to the band.
Yep.
But I know we've talked about this in other interviews before. What was it like joining this band and filling in for Gary? Was it a great fit? Like, did you feel like at home playing with the band?
Absolutely. I mean, I had done a number of Heathen tours where we supported Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I knew the guys for years before we even played together.
Yeah.
That band is probably the most family out of any band I've ever seen. Those guys they all really care about each other, and the touring experience with them is great. There's no guys that fight all the time and all that. It really is a family, and they make me feel like I'm part of the family. So it's been really great. I've loved it. I think at first there was I felt a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. Gary, he's been one of my heroes since I was a kid. So I felt a lot of pressure to, do right by the music and everything. But I worked really hard to try and make it so that if you close your eyes, it still sounds like Exodus and nothing's missing. So
that's excellent.
Yeah.
And you're still going to be part of the family, like you said, because you've got kind of the managerial duties as well, and we'll get into that. But I want to go all the way back, even before your high school band and stuff like that. Where did it come to pass where you wanted to pick up a musical instrument and even start playing? Where did that influence? Where did that kind of like fire come to you as a kid?
When I was 8 years old, my mom would leave the radio on when I went to sleep. And at that time, every night they were playing this new song, and I kept hearing it over and over again. And I'm like, man, I like this song. And so I found out the name of it, and I had my mom take me to go buy the record, and it was Back in Black by AC/DC.
Nice.
And as soon as I heard that, I wanted to play guitar. I was air guitaring with the tennis racket or whatever, and my mom and dad got me an acoustic guitar, and at that point it didn't really stick because it was an acoustic guitar, and the teacher wasn't interested in teaching me how to play it the way that they play it. He was trying to teach me like strumming chords and crap like that. So, which are obviously useful, but at the time when you're 8 years old, you don't want to do that. You want to play and have it sound like AC/DC. So it didn't really stick, but I still loved music. And I think when I was about 13, I started playing again. And then I think it was 15 when I started playing along with the song, and it just clicked. Something clicked right then, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And from that point forward, I started, playing in bands, and I was gigging at, 16 or 17 or whatever, and making demos, and, do all the do-it-yourself stuff that sort of helped me even now.
Yeah, yeah. And were there bands before Psychosis?
Yeah. I think I had one. What did we call it? I think it was called Guillotine or something like that. Where I was like, that was like when I was 15 or something. So
you gotta love those early, bands when you're just breaking in. I love hearing about the names and like where that even comes from, because we were all kids once, and it was like, I'm sure when you were Guillotine, it was like, this is the best. We're Guillotine.
And we even spelled it Teen, so it was like teenagers, So
oh, I love it. I freaking love it. Oh my gosh. And then, so we move forward a little bit, and then the band that you were in high school, like you said, you're still together.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard now. I moved away from. I used to live in Los Angeles for forever, and I moved away from there, so we don't get together and like jam and rehearse and stuff like we used to. But we all still like playing together. It's fun, and we love the music. I mean, you look back fondly on things like that, even though you struggled to try and get anywhere with it, at times. So, it's cool. I love doing it, or else I would have quit a long time ago. I had a completely different career in between playing music and playing music. So, I could have stayed there if I wanted to, but I didn't want to.
Well, good. What was that career?
From I think it was 99 to 2011, I was a video game producer for Activision.
Oh, nice. Wow. How did you go from being a musician into being a video game producer? How do you go on that journey?
A trip to the hospital, no health insurance, and a kid was the that kind of stuff that drives you to reevaluate and see what you want to do. I happened to be at home. I was playing a video game. I got really pissed off because I watched my 99 lives die, or I'll go away at once because of a bug in the game, and it was an Activision game. And so I was like, well, these guys obviously need help testing these games because this fucking sucks. So So I went on their website, and they needed testers, actually, and I just got a job, and I worked my way up, sort of from the actually, I would say the ground floor, but it was actually in the basement. So
wow, that's so interesting, and I didn't even know that about you. And as a big video game hobbyist, I mean, I've never been in the industry, but I sure do love video games. Okay, what were some of the titles that you helped produce while you were there?
I worked on a number of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series games. I worked on a couple other of their what they called action sports games. So there was a motocross game that was supposed to be Travis Pastrana's Pro Motocross, but they changed it to MTX for some reason. And then I worked on a couple of the Guitar Hero games. And then I worked on a 007, the Quantum of Solace video game for the film. I did some sort of I don't know. I guess it would be freelance work after that, editing audio. Like I worked on the Elder Scrolls Online game.
That's awesome.
Edited and cleaned up all the dialogue in that game and managed a team of other editors. So
wow,
I've never played the game, but I've heard all the dialogue.
Well, then there you go. That you played the game basically. I have to ask, as a guitarist, when you said you worked on Guitar Hero, did you get to put any of both those skills together, video games and guitar, or?
At the very end, I was working on what would have been Guitar Hero 7.
Oh my gosh.
Which didn't come out. They had a new guitar controller with strings on it. And I was really helping them to try and figure out how to make it work for the average person that's not a guitarist.
Right.
I mean, part of the sort of beauty of that game was that it's a rhythm game at the end of the day. You don't have to know how to play anything. You just have to know what buttons to hit in the right order. So consequently, drummers are awesome at Guitar Hero. Actually.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean that would have been, that would have been really cool. Being a guitar player actually was kind of a negative in some ways for me working on that game, because it's not at all like playing guitar.
Right.
And they would have, meetings where somebody would say that Kurt Cobain is a guitar hero, and I would say no, he's not a guitar hero. He might have been a songwriting hero, but he's not a guitar hero.
Right.
Getting into sort of semantic arguments where they don't, most the marketing people didn't care about that. They just want to sell the game. So
exactly.
Anyway, it was interesting doing that. I was fortunate. Prototype had a song in Guitar Hero 3, which was the biggest of the Guitar Hero games. Everybody knows the band from that one song.
But it's pretty rad, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool.
Those types of games, not even just Guitar Hero, but you brought up how you were working on Tony Hawk too. Like, so many people know punk and metal because of those video games. So many of like the younger generation were exposed to all this amazing music because of the Tony Hawk games and the music they incorporated. And I think that's rad that we live in an era like that. Like, it's pretty rad.
I was really fortunate. I mean, when the first, I think it was really Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 that blew up.
Yeah.
And Activision had been rebought and sort of restarted at that point, like right before that. And I got in at sort of the ground floor of the rebirth of Activision, and got to work on quite a few of those games. There was one which wasn't all that successful, but it was my concept for the game. It was called Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, and I got to take the sort of a one-page concept that I wrote for a game and have somebody make it. It was a really cool experience to be able to do that. And then we filmed with Tony. I took my son to get to meet him.
I was just going to say, did you ever get a chance to meet Tony? That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I met him several times because I worked on the games, but it was more of a joy for me to have my son, who was like 10 at the time, meet Tony Hawk. He was like, that was like legendary for him. So.
Oh, that's so rad. That's really cool. So then let's go forward, and how do you then leave that career path and go back to music?
In 2011, I got laid off from Activision. It's seemingly every 5 years or so, they do a massive layoff. And I was a victim of that. They were downsizing the company. They were focusing on less products. They killed the Guitar Hero franchise and several other things that they were working on. And so when I got laid off, there was a part of me that was bummed. Obviously, I had just finished working on Guitar Hero 6, which is called Warriors of Rock. I finished the game 28 days early and passed all the first parties, which is basically submission process to Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft. I passed all those on the first try. It was like the best, sort of project working experience that I had had with the company, and everybody knew that I had felt that I had done a really good job with it. So when I got laid off, I was kind of like, what? Why? Yeah. But at the same time, I looked at it as an opportunity, because while it was probably the best job I've ever had in terms of a real, day job, and it was certainly a cool career, it wasn't what I wanted to do. Deep down, I wanted to play music, and I wanted to be a musician. So a few years before that, I had the opportunity to audition for Heathen, and I had already joined the band, and we had done tours and released an album, which was The Evolution of Chaos in 2010. And we had other tours lined up, and I kind of just decided that I was going to be a musician again. So, you know, it's at times it can be hard, you know, when you're at that time I wasn't playing with Exodus yet, or you know, doing the guitar books or doing anything else. It was just sort of starting from the beginning, so to speak. Again, I was fortunate to be able to be in a cool band and have touring opportunities, and really enjoyed it. So
that's awesome.
I just made a choice.
That's awesome. That's very awesome. And now that we're kind of brought up with Heathen and all that, I'm always curious asking musicians about the writing process. And what is that like in Heathen? How do you guys like attack creating an album, writing a song, that kind of thing?
I think it's really different for every band. You know, there are some bands where they like to get in the room and jam together. There are other bands where there's one guy who sits at home and he writes all the stuff. It's obviously harder to sort of collaborate when I live like 2,000 miles from the other guys. So it's harder to collaborate with them. But now with modern technology, I can make, you know, demos of songs and send them out and get feedback. And then once you get into the studio, you can hammer out like little details and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's kind of how like Exodus and Heathen work, is that there's one, like each person sort of writes on their own, and then they come together and, you know, and hammer things out.
Yeah.
So.
Really cool, really cool. And from a tech side, too, I got to ask, I see all the guitars lining your walls and behind you and all that stuff. Favorite guitar to play on?
Okay, to play on? It's got to be one of my ESPs, probably my ESP V2. I have one here and I have one in Europe. They're just really solid guitars, and I love them. If you're asking me like most cherished, it's probably the red one behind me, which was owned by Robin Crosby of Rat.
Oh, really?
And that guitar was my main guitar in Psychosis for a long time when I was younger. So.
Oh, wow! How did you end up with that guitar?
I was not even looking for anything at the time. This was like probably in '88 or I don't know, something like that. I was walking there back then on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. They had what was called Guitar Row. So there was Guitar Center, and then across the street there were like 2 guitar stores and the Mesa Boogie store, and then around the corner there were like a couple more guitar stores. It was crazy. Like there were just guitars everywhere, like in a 1-block area. You could spend all day going from store to store to store and just look at and play guitars. Awesome. So I went in one store, and I can't even remember which one it is. It was across the street from Guitar Center. And I walked in there and I saw this red V and this Jackson, and I was like, man, that's awesome. It was pretty much exactly what I would have like custom made if I had it, you know,
right.
The ability to. So I went up to the counter and I asked the guy how much it was, and he told me $800. And I was like, okay, cool. And I had a rule back then, and I still sort of do, where if you go into a store and you look at a guitar and you see it and you play it and you really like it, you put it down and leave, and you come back another day. If it's still there, you're meant to have it. If somebody else bought it, you're not.
I like that.
I don't know why. It's always kind of been my rule. So I came back a couple days later, and the guitar was still there. And I took it up to the counter and I said, I want to buy this. And the guy said, okay, it's $900. I said, no, I came in the other day and you said it was $800. And they didn't even know what they had, really. I mean, I took it to, I had a deal with Jackson back in the 2000s, and I took it to the Ontario factory, which doesn't exist anymore, but or maybe it does. Maybe that's where they make them now. But they had all of the information on each guitar on an index card, in a little flip thing. And so I could see, the Jackson logo is reversed, which was something you have to hold it up to a mirror basically to read it. And that was something that Robin Crosby did all the time. So it's just a cool guitar, and I don't take it anywhere anymore. It's a decoration, more or less. I get it down and play it for fun every once in a while. But
so, did you find out that it was Robin's guitar when you took it to the Jackson plant, or did you know before that?
I knew before that. As soon as I saw it with the reverse logo and all of that, and I knew it when it was at the store, and they didn't know it, and so. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that he probably sold it for drugs because he was heavy into heroin and stuff. And, so in a way I feel bad, but at least the guitar, lived on and got played on stage many times after that. So
that's excellent. I love stories like that. The other side of it, though, is now you are managing bands, not just Exodus, but, you were saying that you do managerial duties for Heathen too, right?
Yep. And also Raven.
And how'd you kind of fall into that? Was that something that you were always looking to do, or did you just fall into it, or?
I don't know what it is, but I think probably since I got laid off at Activision, I've kind of just gone where life takes me.
Nice.
Instead of trying to swim upstream like I used to, I just kind of roll with it, and it's been interesting. I got exposed touring with Exodus. Obviously, got exposed to the business side of it quite a bit for the band, and I think in a lot of ways, like, it helps because I've built a level of trust with the guys. And it was earlier this year really where I started to kind of do it, officially. Prior to that, I was helping out with like doing the YouTube channel and, some social media stuff, things that I felt had been neglected. And I wanted to kind of help them grow all of that stuff. So, I started kind of doing that, and then it just evolved. I mean, as the Exodus guys would probably say, they never ask anybody to do anything. They just do it. It's a weird thing, but cool. Weird.
That is really cool. So that brings me to the question I get to on this show, and I love asking everybody this, and especially somebody who's as busy as you and just wants to continue to do all this stuff through all of the playing, all the managing, all the guitar books you're making, all the life's journeys that you've been on. What fuels you to keep going?
That's a good question. I mean, I like making things and doing things. I don't have to. I'm one of those people that doesn't have to have somebody tell me to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love this kind of music, and I love being involved with it. And I hate seeing these bands that have been around for a long time, that have been heroes of mine, kind of not get what they should. And so, going back and getting royalties from their old record deals and things like that, like that they haven't had for 30 years. It's like they should at least get this, royalty statements, even if there's no money, and so things like that. In terms of, I don't know. I mean, I'm creative. I want to do projects. I like making something out of nothing. Sometimes I don't know what it is that fuels me. I just, besides coffee, it's just I make lists and I just do things. I just like doing stuff, I mean,
yeah.
I like staying busy. I think it's good for me. I'm the kind of person where if I'm not busy, it's not good for me. So I try to just stay busy.
That's awesome.
Probably busier than my wife would like it, but but it's a good thing. I guess I'm just driven to to be good at what I do and make the best things that I can. That's always my goal. I mean, there's a little bit of that competitiveness in there where whatever I make or do, I want it to be better than everybody else's. It's something that I wish more people had.
Yeah.
Seems like in this day and age, people are content to just do things that are okay. And I'm like, why? Let's be great.
Yeah. That is inspiring. That's really rad. And, you're a fan of what you do. And what I mean by that is that you love what you do. From the manager side to the musician side, you are a fan of it. And it shows. And I think that's why it's so inspiring to talk to somebody like you. And speaking of being a fan, like you've mentioned a couple times, I mean, you're playing with Exodus at the moment, but you're a fan of the band. And that's so cool. It's not like you just got a job, and you're like, I'll fill in, it's like you're doing this because, there's a genuine love for that. So I got to ask, do you remember when you first heard Exodus?
Oh yeah, I totally remember it. I was in middle school, I think. And, I had heard, I think it was, Ride the Lightning from Metallica.
Yeah.
And I went to the metal kids and I was like, what sounds like this? I want all of it. And they loaned me, they loaned me a Slayer and Dark Angel and Exodus. And at the time, the Exodus album wasn't out yet. But it was like available on the tape trading scene, Bonded by Blood.
Yeah.
So, and once I had two different cassettes and at least 2 CDs of Bonded by Blood. The cassettes, I just wore them out. I loved that album and everything that they did after that, really. So for me to get to play with them, and I mean, even still now, like a few days ago, I looked at my phone at the last 5 calls and I was like, you got to be kidding me. When I was 15, if I had known that I would be like, on the phone with guys from all these bands, like I'd be, I wouldn't have believed it. So it's still cool to me. I really enjoy it. I even, I enjoy teaching when I teach lessons. I enjoy all of the stuff I do. If I didn't, I wouldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's truly inspiring talking with you. And at the end here, so our listeners and viewers can follow your journey. Obviously, they can follow all the bands, and I'll put all that stuff in the liner notes. But for you personally, is there a way that people can follow you? Do you social media a lot? Is there one that you like better than the other?
Yeah, social media is like, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I'm not one of those guys that lives my life on social media, so to speak. I think some private stuff should be private, or family stuff should be family. And, so I do post. I have a Facebook page. It's my personal page. Mm-hmm. I have a Spotify artist page. I have my web store. There's 2 web stores actually. One for Heathen that I run from here, and then my record label / book label, whatever you want to call it, which I also run from here. And when people order from those stores, I'm sending it out myself, personally. So,
excellent.
Really probably just Facebook is probably the best at this point.
Perfect. Well, I'll put all that in here.
I do have a YouTube channel as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll put all that in the show too. And I know we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but in 2019, what are some of the things that are coming out for you specifically with your different projects? Anything that you can talk about?
Let's see. Well, I mean, later this year, like I said, we're going to be recording the Heathen album.
Right.
We don't have the release date set yet, so I'm not sure if that's coming out later this year or early next year. But that's probably the sort of biggest project I'm working on.
Excellent.
I do have the Temple of the Damned Exodus guitar book that's out now.
Mm-hmm.
The next next one of those on my list is probably the Fabulous Disaster guitar book for Exodus. It's the 30th anniversary of the album this year, so I'd like to try and get that out before the end of the year. And I mean, other than that, it's really just helping all the bands that I'm working for, and trying to help them all get bigger and take over the world.
Excellent. Well, Kragen, I can't thank you enough for taking time and talking with me on the show. It was really a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Awesome. And thank you for the coffee. I love coffee.
Anytime.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.